Good morning and good afternoon. Welcome to the Weekend Wellness Hour show. I'm very excited to have with me today Clarissa Burt, who has become a little bit of a mentor with me. I'm part of her women's mastermind. And for those of you, you probably have heard of her name before. She's an award-winning actress, international media personality, producer, director, writer, author, public speaker, and of course, supermodel. She has expanded and grown in so many ways, and I'm very excited to have you on today, Clarissa. Thank
You're so
you.
kind. Thanks very much. Let's just say supermodel part was a long, long time ago. That was a long time ago.
You can see it.
Well, thanks for that. But anyway, yeah, so we've moved on to, I love what I do in media. That's really where I love to have fun. I mean, if you can be paid to be on camera and be on microphone, for me, it's a win-win. But all along, I knew that this book was going to be written. So the idea of self-esteem and wanting to, share what I know about it. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, and I'm not a psychiatrist. So the self-esteem regime is nothing more than what I've been able to garner through, the ebb and flow of life and its ups and downs. And so here we are.
And it's great because I'm actually reading this book with your group and going through it. And I know your background, and I would love for you to share a little bit, because sometimes it's not the degree that you have that gives you the authority to talk about something. Sometimes it's experience.
Yeah.
And you have, without a doubt, a lot of experience in the world of self-esteem, and because you're in the public eye all the time. So can you share with us maybe some of your background and how your self-esteem was, how you developed it? What did you learn?
Right. Well, let's say, I started out at home, obviously, as it does for most of us, right? So it's our natal tribe. And so we learn from the natal tribe the things that about ourselves that are either they approve of or they disapprove of. And that's where we start to, sort of package, if you will, our thought processes at very young ages, 3, 4, and 5, 6 years old. I remember that my mother was very reticent to have her picture taken, didn't want her picture taken, hated to have her picture taken. She didn't think she was pretty. And, so I decided to just, turn my whole life into take a picture of me. And then my grandmother, beautiful woman, had to lose weight, She didn't need to lose an ounce. She did not need to lose an ounce, but she took 2 diet pills one day. She swallowed them, perforated her esophagus, and was 6 weeks in the hospital. So I thought, well, that was rather interesting. Okay, that was silly, I think. But, I'm watching these women who just didn't feel like they were enough. And remember, these were the 50s and the 60s when, being a good woman really meant being a good mother and being a good wife. And so everything was sort of, packaged in that way. The other thing that I did was I started to, when I was older, I modeled, and I modeled all over the world, and I modeled with the 1% of women that were on all the runways in the world and coming home with magazine covers. And I was lucky enough to be one of those gals. And now I'm not speaking for every model. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is I was able to see that there was some toxicity in relationships or drugs or drinking or anorexia and bulimia or whatever it was. I'm looking at these gloriously gorgeous women and thinking, what is it here that is, sort of the common denominator between my mother in Collingdale, Pennsylvania, right? And the girl on the Valentino runway in Rome, like and so of course, the answer is it was lack of happy, healthy self-esteem.
Yeah. And that's incredible. I mean, can you share with us a little bit of your journey too? Because were you at the point where your self-esteem was low at any point of this, or were you able to watch and observe and kind of study and try to find ways to keep yours at a higher level?
No. My self-esteem was usually rather low. I came from a family where there was a lot of strife, if you will. There was a lot of bickering and arguing and yelling and screaming and violence. And so I grew up in a household that was really, I'm not going to say War of the Roses, kind of, but there was a lot of, I think I came out with some PSTD for sure. I knew I came out with anxiety. I knew that I've been dealing with depression in some way, shape, or form in different stages of my life. And so, I knew that there had to be more to life than what I had been taught. So you may remember that there were Borders books and Walden books. And of course, we still have Barnes and Noble. And I would find my respite. I would find solace and support in the self-help section. They used to call it the self-help section. Yeah. And it really wasn't that many books. If you don't know if you remember or not, it wasn't that many books. Yeah. we were getting started. Now, when you go into Barnes and Noble, and I'm thrilled to say my book is in Barnes and Noble, it is just rows and rows and rows of what they now call personal development.
Yeah.
So, and it's a $1 billion industry. So, the idea that there is no blame, no shame, and certainly, I really suggest that you read books from the personal development section, and that you do strive to be the best person you can be. And certainly, what I like to say, a better person tomorrow than I am today.
Yeah. Yeah. Those little changes each day. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So at what point did you decide, okay, I want to take all this knowledge and put it into a book and share it with others? Was that something long coming, or just
Well, I
recent?
was the kid that always played with the underdog on the on the playground,
Mhm.
And then at a certain point, I realized by second, third grade, I really wasn't going to be one of the cliquey girls, and I wasn't going to be one of the popular girls either. And so it didn't matter. I wasn't happy on the playground. So I used to go up to the kindergarten class when it was recess time, and I'd go up to kindergarten, and I'd help the teacher either grade the papers or read to children or clean up the room or whatever it was, so that my recess time was taken. I really felt as though I was doing grown-up things. I couldn't wait to grow up when I was younger. And so I knew at a very early age that I wanted to do something as I love empowering people. It's the best word I can find. I call it encounter, engage, and encourage one another. And that's what I really like to do. I love connecting people, and I love connecting good people, and I love seeing them create associations and help one another, support one another. Life is tough enough as it is, without having to live miserably. So I really feel as though the book was in me a very, very long time ago. The foreword was written by Sharon Lecter, but Gary Krebs was if you will, my writer. So I met with Gary somewhere along the line about 18 to 20 times as we were writing this book. And I would tell him exactly what the name was going to be, the regime being an organized way of doing things. I like the self-esteem regime, and that kind of, it flowed nicely, but the regime is an organized way of doing things. And as you've been reading the book, you see that the first chapter is release. And that means, okay, I've come to the table with all of this stuff. What now do I need to do with this? Okay, we need to release a lot of the old stuff. And that first chapter is probably going to be the most difficult work. It's really, what do you need to unlearn, right? It's what does it come to the table with from, again, the natal tribe? What do you come to the table with from friends, what your friends and your associations? What do you come to the table with from your faith? Because faith into this as well. Sometimes, and I'm not here to talk about whether you should or shouldn't. I'm just saying, if you go down a faith path, there may be things there that you're either a little bit of a conundrum, or you don't necessarily always agree with. It just happens, right? The people that we've come in through our educative process, our institutions, colleges, universities, the people that we know from there. And so we gather and garner as we grow all of these opinions that of ourselves through others. Like we call this self-help. This is not shelf help. This is not go buy my book and then put it on your nightstand and forget about it. This is work. So self-esteem can be broken down into many different factions. There's a whole bunch of different things behind, self-esteem 101, never compare yourself to someone else. Okay, we get that. But there's a lot of other things too, from the imposter syndrome all the way down to 1,000 other case studies that we could talk about. But it's just all about really wanting to not live in pain anymore, to have the courage to change the perception even of yourself. And so I think I've done a lot of work over the years that on myself. I'm a work in progress, as most of us are. But I know that I want to be a better person tomorrow than I am today, and I really work on that. Boundaries are another huge piece of self-esteem, and a lot of people are very afraid of boundaries because they think that they're going to lose people. Well, you know what? The reality is, you may have to. We have a chapter in the book. It's replace, and you may have to replace And replace doesn't mean put someone else in someone else's position. It means you may have to replace them in your life, right?
Got it. Yes. And it's hard because when you set boundaries and you're losing some of your support system, it's hard to think, what can I do without that support system, or that I'm going to make someone mad,
Yep.
something like that.
Yep.
It
Exactly.
takes a lot of courage.
Exactly. So your truth, as you're going down your path and learning and growing and becoming bigger, better, bolder, and brighter, may not necessarily be the one that you were taught. Doesn't mean you're not going to go home for Christmas dinner and you won't be there for Thanksgiving dinner. It means that you're going to love your natal tribe where they're at. It means that you're going to love your friends and your friendships where they're at. We're all growing. Everyone is growing, some more quickly than others, and certainly we're all going in different directions. So we have to know that a part of even emotional intelligence is coming home again and living where all of those triggers are just festering to bite you in the butt, and you decide that that's not going to happen. This is where the emotional intelligence comes in. You decide that's not going to happen. You're not going to be triggered, and you're going to love everyone where they're at. As we grow and we become really, become more successful, and we're getting married and having children, and we're successful in our careers, it will put some people's noses out of joint, and that's called jealousy. And sometimes it's envy. And I've had that happen to me on more than one occasion. And I always have to just thank, I call it source, divine, we can call it whatever we want, for the universe, for whatever it is that I was lucky enough to grab hold of in this lifetime, and to, again, to love everyone else where they're at in the moment. And sometimes people are going to come at you, and they're going to come for you, and you just have to not let it trigger you. You'll learn that in the book.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is, like, when we hear the word self-esteem, we all know we want to have high self-esteem, but we all fear that we have low self-esteem. Like, what have you seen? Like, what is such a problem that we don't work on it more? We just shove it away?
I think it's, again, I come back to the word courage, because it's an uncomfortable place in space. When you start to work on the things that aren't working, it's sometimes, and most times, much easier to just go, you know what, status quo. Leave it alone, leave it be. Don't want to go there. Don't want to take the deeper dive. Don't want to walk the last mile alone, because they'd say the longest mile, right? We hear about that all frequently. And the longest mile is the longest mile because it can be fraught with, it can be dark and dank, and it can be rainy and muddy and scary, with goblins hiding behind the trees, and it's dimly lit. Like, nobody wants to go down that path, nobody wants to do it. But if you know that you can see the light at the end of that path, at the end of that tunnel, the closer you move to it, the bigger, more bolder and brighter it becomes. And it takes the courage to do that. Now, that's a metaphor for, the things that we would have to go through in life. But, when you start to avoid negative self-talk, I still do it. I have what I call the daily demons, and there they are. And here they come back again. And now it's just like, yeah, bud, not today. Sorry. No can do. I mean, there was a time that I'd play into that and say, yeah, you're right. I'd have this conversation with these demons, these daily demons, as I call them, and it was getting me nowhere. Doesn't work. It doesn't push you forward in any way, so when you start to say, but we're going to avoid my negative self-talk, we're not going to do that anymore. Social media, huge as far as lack of self-esteem, and sliding back down that slope of, oh my God, I'm not good enough. And by the way, here's something else I'll throw at you for that. We always hear people say, I am enough, you are enough. And they're feeling that they're really saying and doing something right. If you take a look at the definition of enough, it's only as much as is required. So exactly. It's kind of like, wow, that kind of doesn't, it cuts it a little short, doesn't it? So the most important thing, I think, now is for us all to be able to say, I am so much more than enough. And I know I am, and I know you are, right? We are so much more than enough. And that so much more is where I like to share, the wisdom that from my lifetime, and certainly what I've put into this book. So when I was talking about social media, that's where you start to compare yourself to everybody else. Well, be very, very careful, because a lot of it is perception. A lot of it are filters. You know?
Yes.
A
Yeah.
lot of it is not reality. It's not based in reality. So take what, what serves you, leave the rest, stop comparing yourself. And the other reason I'll tell you to stop comparing yourself is because you need to feel like you are so lucky that you get to be you. Right? It doesn't matter if someone is bigger, better, richer, prettier, gets all the boys, doesn't matter, because you have not yet walked a mile in her shoes. You do not know what's really going on there. You know what you're perceiving. Worry about your life, worry about enhancing and enriching you and your life in every way you possibly can. Accept your flaws, love your flaws, and then start to make manageable goals. That's half of the book right there.
Yeah, you have a great story in there, how you helped a young woman turn herself around. She didn't like
to live in this house.
Yes, and it was a fascinating story. I mean, it just carries you right along, because you're like, okay, I got to know what happens to this young woman. I mean, the fact that you took her in, she was doing a career that didn't really suit her. She didn't want to do it, but for the money, it was getting her through.
Right,
and then
Las Vegas, yes.
Yes. And then she's staying with you. And I love how you talk to her about what is it she really wants, what really makes her tick. And she thought it was modeling. And she thought that was part of it. She wanted to become a supermodel like you. But there was another part of her, like beauty, aesthetics, and hair and all that. And you helped her test, because so much of our lives we're taught, okay, you go down that road. You go down that road, you just keep going. But you gave her the chance to say, test it out. Do you really want to go down that road?
Well, I think more than anything, it was the universe that gave her the chance. I was that conduit, and she was ready. When I met her in I was in Las Vegas at an event, a networking event, and it was 7:30 in the morning, and I had been there the day before, and I think people had sort of said, who I was and what I was doing, because I hadn't yet spoken on stage. And the next morning I came down, and she was there 7:30 in the morning. She was standing there just waiting for me. Nobody else was really down there, because I do everything early. So I was going down early. She was standing there, and she said to me, Clarissa. I said, yeah, honey, it's Brittany. I said, yes, honey, I remember. And she said, can I talk to you? And yeah, absolutely. So I took her aside, and we sat on a bench, and she started to bawl her eyes out. And I said, honey, what is it? Is it a man? I said, is it money? No. I said, are you a call girl? Yeah. And so from there, we started to work on, I said, look, I think the first thing you need to do is get out of here. You can come live with me. I'm in Cape Creek, Arizona. I said, I'm in bed at 8:30. I'm up at 5. This is not the life. So this is, it's boring. And she said, oh my gosh, she said, it sounds perfect.
Yeah.
She gathered up all her things, and within 2 days she came into my she showed up here at the house, and the driveway was a white sports car with a pink racing stripe down the middle, a bling, the license plate. She had eyelashes up to here, nails out to here. And it was really interesting. Till this day, she changed her phone number so that nobody could contact her anymore. To this day, she still has a 480 phone number from Arizona or from Phoenix. She has moved on, found the love of her life. She's living in Texas somewhere. She's started up her own salon, and she is a rock star. Cutting hair, coloring hair, on the cutting edge. It's kind of funny to say, but she really is on the cutting edge of cutting hair. She's doing really, really well. So, she didn't get along well with her mom. As I said, a lot of our problems and a lot of our issues start in the natal tribe. And sometimes we can get off, we can get on the wrong path. She was off for a minute, and then she got right back on. So I'm really proud of her. Every Mother's Day, I get a special wishes from her through social media, Yeah.
That's truly amazing. And when she was going through this process of repairing her self-esteem to live her purpose and achieve what she wanted, how hard was that? Because when you're going through something, there's like this resistance. You feel like you're butting up heads. And
I'll tell you this, Amy. She was so ready.
Okay.
She was so ready. When you get to that point, you get to the brink, and you're on the edge, you're on the precipice. And it's like, she knew. And when she made the move to come here, I knew she was serious about it. She was with me for about 4 months. And she said to me one day, I'm going back to Las Vegas. And I said, oh, she goes, oh no, I'm going back and I'm going to be a waitress, which she was. First, she was at one hotel and then she wound up at another, and she was working in the higher end, establishments where she met the man that she's with today. And they are very, very happy. And she's really a rush. She was ready. So if that answered the question, hope it did, but I knew that she just needed somewhere else to go. She needed a clearer head. She needed to see there was another way to live. She needed to be loved. And we'd sit in the living room every night and we'd talk, and we were girls, and she'd ask advice, and we'd watch Netflix together, the things, and popcorn, the things that kind of bind you to in relationship. Yeah, that's what we did. And it was really time for both of us, very well spent.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. And something you kind of also mentioned, that a lot of these issues kind of start when we're kids. So what do you tell parents now to help them support their kids' self-esteem so that it doesn't get, trashed or lowered or anything like that?
Right. Well, I mean, first of all, I think that having a value system is really important, at the home base, a really strong value system. So, define what your morals are, teach them what moral code means. And it's hard because, and I would, if I were a parent, I would, especially the earlier ages, I would really cut back on their screen time, TV and screen time. Get yourselves back to the kitchen table. Let's get back to some of the roots that, spending some real valuable, time with one another, I think is really, really important. Get the values, get your values written down. And I think that's just really, really important. And then I have my own that I call, and it's something that's called take the high road. We were just talking about taking the road, the extra mile, but I call mine taking the high road, which is honesty, integrity, living in greatness, and with honor. So my 4 values that I will not compromise in any way, shape, or form is I am radically honest with everything and everyone. It doesn't always make me the most popular person in the room, but I know that I'm not blowing smoke up anybody's chimney back. Integrity, I think, is some of the most important. Is one of the most important. It's the most important word in my vocabulary. Honesty and integrity are the 2. The G in high could be greatness or gratitude. I love greatness because I know I already live in gratitude all day long. And then the H, that's last H, is honor. And that is, who are you when nobody else is in the room? How are you treating others? What are you doing to better yourself tomorrow? Be a better person tomorrow than you are today. And how have you treated people along the way? So when we go back to the old-fashioned values, if you will, of good manners, was getting up in public transportation and letting the elderly or a pregnant woman sit down, right? I mean, I don't know if we do that much anymore. I still do. I think these little small acts of kindness are some of the most important things we can be teaching children right now, along with helping a lady down the stairs with a baby carriage, holding the elevator door open for someone that you see is struggling to get there. Just doing those small acts of kindness and instilling those in children, I think is 90% of the game. And then, they know to teach them right from wrong from the outset, I think is where we need to be. We need to get back to those old roots and those old fashioned values.
And it's great. I can see how that could help them develop their self-esteem when they're also taking care of the world. They're realizing we're a community. We support each other.
Absolutely.
That's great. So as you're going through this book and you're writing this book, what else comes up for you in terms of how you can reach people? Is this book designed for women only? Can men read it too? Because I know in your mastermind, it's a women's group, but do you see men need this just as much as women?
I do say that.
Okay.
You'll see that here there are 3 iterations of blue in those triangles, right? When it first came, it was orange, yellow, and pink on both sides, on the top and the bottom. So it was rather fruity looking and it would jump off the shelf, and it was very bright. and those are feminine colors. The
Mhm.
only thing that I asked the publisher to do was one thing, and that was, can you please make this the 3 iterations of blue? And they
Interesting.
did. So that it was, not only was it a little bit more of a calming color, but it was also meant to be picked up by men. And I cannot tell you how many men have
Oh,
read it and got with me and said, this is by far, exactly what I needed to know. I've heard, the book is changing people's lives, which is why I'm so glad that we integrated also into the mastermind, because it's one of the most important things to me is that our mastermind is not only business, which we do help each other with,
mhm.
but certainly our personal lives. We are go, 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 go all the time.
Mm.
And if we have a personal issue, and you saw on Monday, there was a gal in the mastermind that was having a difficult time, and it showed up with some tears, right? And the
Mhm.
first thing that I do is I shut down the mastermind for anything else but her. And I would do that I've done that many times. And for anybody that, is having a difficult moment and
Mhm.
needs to have 22 sisters right there
Yeah.
at the ready to give her a tip, a tool, a resource, a hug, the phone number, an email, anything that she may need in that moment. So the personal work that I'm doing, the personal development, I call it personal envelopment. The personal envelopment piece is
Mhm.
the most important thing to me. We need to
Yeah.
be loving on each other a little bit more these
Yeah.
days.
Yeah, absolutely. And like many things, something like this where you're working on self-esteem and you're going through a book like this, it's a practice, right? It's a daily practice.
Absolutely.
It's
Especially when you're doing the journaling
yeah.
that we call for in the book, and it's super, especially when you're doing the mirror therapy. So mirror
Mhm.
therapy is something that I had learned originally from Louise Hay. I also read it in Jack Canfield's works, and I wanted to adopt it into the book as well, adopt the mirror therapy and put it into the book as well. And it's just one of those kind of things that when you are, talking, you're not talking at the mirror, you're talking into the mirror, like you're going
Mhm.
into your eyes and through, like right down to your soul, and you're telling yourself things and saying things to yourself that normally you would never hear. And
Yeah.
one of the most important things I think is when we can look in the mirror and say, I love you,
Yeah.
I forgive you,
Yeah.
I cannot wait for the moment that you know that you've got this. When you start to be your own rah-rah session, and again,
Mhm.
they call it self-help because it's help that comes from the self. If you're waiting for everybody else to validate you and pat you, this feels great. Don't get me wrong. All the
Mhm.
adulation in the world is lovely.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you don't believe it, it's for naught,
Yeah.
it's for naught. I love the
Yeah.
part in the book, or some of the parts in the book that, and I usually do this on pretty much every podcast. I'll open it up and I don't even know what
Mhm.
chapter it is because I have this is my working copy, you'll
Oh,
see.
that's
So I
awesome.
just kind of go like this and I go, let's see, what can we come up with today? And I
Mhm.
go to the affirmation section because the
Mhm.
book it's just full of, we've got case studies, Clarissa's Corner, the
Mhm.
Clarion Call, the review, homework. It's just affirmations. It's full of things. But if I were to say to you, like, never compare myself to others as everyone's journey is unique. Well, we've already spoken about that, but if you could just that, if you could take that one affirmation and live by that for the rest of your life, imagine just that one affirmation, how
Just
it could
one.
change your life.
Yeah.
Again, I will never compare myself to others as I know everyone's journey is unique. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand that I already have everything that I need. That's a tough one to wrap your head around when you're feeling like you're living in lack, but it's
Yes.
true. It's true. I
Yeah.
treat myself like I am my own best friend. Now, Amy, again, I know how I treat others,
Mhm.
and I'd like to think I'm a pretty darn good friend. Really, I'd like to think that. And I think I am a good friend.
Mhm.
Am I that good to myself? And I ask the audience, are you really that good to yourself? So this is a
Mhm.
powerful book. This is a book that you're going to read,
Mhm.
and you may put it down and then pick it up again in 6 months, and it will be a whole different set of tools and resources for you because the first time you weren't ready to hear them,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
You're only ready to accept what you're ready to learn in the moment. So
Yeah.
this is a kind of, I believe all personal development books are rereads. And it's funny because every chapter of my book is a re-word. So release, responsibility, rebuild. This is a reread. And I also say that my book is a manual, but it's also a mission and it's a movement, because the better we're all feeling about ourselves, the better we can, it's sort of like that, the ripple effect, right? That we can then empower so many others to be feeling really good about themselves. And if everybody, can you imagine a world full of people that felt really good about themselves?
It would be unrecognizable to us right now, because there would be so much love going around. It'd be amazing.
There'd be so much love going around. That's exactly right. And love is a beautiful thing. So that's why I think we all should be striving every day to, be the best that we can possibly be a better person tomorrow than we are today. What is that one small thing you might do that's going to, and I say, when we're talking about the greater good and doing things for others, man, I'll tell you, I think that's like that's an instant self-esteem boost, man. When you do something for somebody else, even the smallest little thing, a smile, a compliment, I don't know, puts a little bit of a lilt in my step when I'm feeling like I've done something good for someone else. And look, it's not, it's not brain science. It's pretty simple stuff to do.
Yeah, it really is. And I find it very useful. Your book, you also have summary questions at the end, like what actions do you take? Because that one of the things you said at the very beginning, it's not just to sit up on your shelf, it's actually for you to do. And that's what's nice. You can read a chapter, do some work on it. And the way you have it structured in the mastermind is you read a chapter a week and you have some discussions about it and you can move through it. And sometimes, book clubs know this. Anytime you discuss something with other people, it's going to help instill it into you. Exactly. It's well put together, really well done. And I appreciate you sharing it.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. So now people want to get it. They can go on Amazon, I assume, or Barnes & Noble. You said that it can go either way.
Walk right into Barnes & Noble and buy it. You can get it on barnesandnoble.com. You can also get it on Amazon, because on Amazon, it's also on Audible and Kindle.
Oh, that's wonderful. Absolutely. Great. And so where can people learn more about you? What's the best way for them just to gain more information?
Anywhere but Snapchat. I'm not on Snapchat.
Okay.
It's just Clarissa Burt, straight down the row. Go LinkedIn, Clarissa Burt, Facebook, Clarissa Burt. I think Facebook is Clarissa Burt Official, but you'll find me. Pretty simple.
Okay. Absolutely. And your website is clarissaburt.com as well?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yep.
Okay, that sounds great. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to join us today. Thanks for sharing about self-esteem and all of your work. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy. Appreciate you.
Thanks. And thank you all for joining us today. Really great conversation. Please check out Clarissa's information or website, get her book. I'm in the middle of reading it. If you want, you can discuss it with me. So please check her out, support her. She's doing great work. Thank you all, and we'll see you next weekend. Bye.
Bye.